Is it okay to show a horror movie to your 4-year-old daughter? The answer might surprise you, and it's coming up right now. Hey dads, welcome to October, the spookiest month of the year. And if you're like me and you have a 4-year-old daughter, you are struggling to find something seasonally appropriate and age appropriate to show her, to give her the gist of the frights and scares of the holiday without traumatizing her for life. And you'll be surprised that there is a movie that acts quite like a horror movie on some levels that you can show to your 4-year-old daughter. Now, is it a horror movie? No, it's not really a horror movie. 1988's My Neighbor Totoro by director Hayao Miyazaki. It's a very age-appropriate film for all audiences, pretty much. So why am I touting it as a perfect Halloween fright night sort of movie? Here's the plot. Two sisters, Mei and Satsuki, move with their academic dad to an old house in the middle of the forest, where soot sprites creep behind the walls and a forest spirit who only kids can see lurks nearby in an enchanted tree. The two girls, Mei and Satsuki, have very active imaginations, especially Mei, the younger 4-year-old. She's the first one to see Totoro. Satsuki, the older daughter, can eventually see Totoro after trying a few times. The two worry about their mother, who's been in the nearby hospital for a while now. We don't know why. And this leads to an argument that ends with little Mei being lost, trying to find the hospital herself. And this leads the villagers to fear the worst when a sandal, which could be Mei's, turns up in the local pond. Blaming herself for Mei's running away, Satsuki searches all day, but to no avail, until finally she enters Totoro's tree to appeal for his help. Totoro summons his friend the cat bus, just stay with me here, who glides invisibly across the wind and terrain to where Mei sits crying, and then takes them to see their mother at the hospital before getting them home in time for bed. Well, that's the whole plot of this movie, but plot is not really what the movie's about. A lot of this movie is presented from the point of view of the children, and you wind up seeing the reality of their lives. And for instance, their mother is in the hospital. We have no idea if she's ever coming out. They haven't been given all the details, so as not to worry them, and therefore we have not been given all the details. And it actually felt in some ways that this movie was about Satsuki. It's equally about both sisters in the end, but I really felt like I was witnessing Satsuki's salvation in a way. She is taking on a lot more adult responsibilities with taking care of Mei, for instance, while dad's at work, and dealing with a little more information about their mom in the hospital than the 4-year-old would get. And she's kind of scared in a lot of ways that the 4-year-old isn't. And she is trying to cope with this transition from childhood into her young adulthood. This is sort of dealt with in a scene early on where Satsuki goes out to get some firewood and is frightened by the wind coming across the plains in the dark. She runs back into the house, but later on, after she meets Totoro, they actually become the wind together and ride across those same plains together. And she's yelling with the spirit and sort of strength of her self-determination and her ability to conquer her fears. And it's really a beautiful transition in her character. She sort of retains that quality. You get the sense that was slipping away, and now she'll be able to carry it forward into her adult life. Totoro is himself sort of a sleepy spirit. He exists on that boundary between dreams and wakefulness, or childhood and adolescence, if you will. Dad can't see him, for instance, but appreciates the idea of him. And it's sort of a last chance at retaining that sense of childhood wonder while you're being forced into some of the harsh realities of growing up. Daddy's Reason to Watch, we usually give you an actor or an artist who contributed to the movie in some big way that you might appreciate or recognize. This time, it's simply because My Neighbor Totoro is unlike any other film out there that you're likely to find. It operates simultaneously on an adult level and a kid's level very well, and that's really hard to do. You might find that kid inside you responding to it in a big way when you sit down to watch it with your little one. It's about conquering fears, and adults are no more immune to that issue than our kids are. So it's a great movie to watch together and talk about these things. And the way it dealt with sort of the loss of childhood and the threat of the loss of childhood as you become an adult and take on adult viewpoints and responsibilities kind of echoed early Spielberg for me, where only the childish nature can see these unseen things and these otherworldly things. It had echoes of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, for instance, for me, both in that material and in even some of the visuals, which I may be reading into, but I feel like it was there. Fast forward score is surprisingly low for a movie with all those little jump scares and the setups that are kind of like a horror movie, but toned way down. The first time through was a little dicey, I'll admit. We watched it at night. I had never seen it, and those early scenes in the attic with the soot sprites and the first meeting with Totoro with that big toothy grin, and you don't know what's going to happen with May. I didn't want my daughter to have a nightmare, so we turned it off at that point, but we went back to it the next day, and she kind of grabbed onto me while we were watching it, but once she got through it and realized the soot gremlins were benevolent and harmless, and Totoro is also a kind, gentle giant with no malice in him at all, we were able to watch it all the way through many times after that without the remote at all. But bear in mind, it is sort of set up as a horror movie in some ways, in some of the scenes and some of the jump scares that exist, especially in the early scenes. And that's what makes it very appropriate for Halloween. And be warned, after that, you might wind up watching this movie over and over and over. And you know what? If you're like me, you won't mind a bit. It's one of the better movies I've seen in a long time, period. My daughter, Abby, loves this movie like no other movie we found so far. We watched it maybe 3 times last weekend. We watched it since during the week. Something about this movie really, really resonates with youngsters, especially young girls. It sort of celebrates the becoming of age, that strength of childhood, carrying it forward into adulthood, and the mix of those two aspects of their personalities, which can be hard for them to navigate. You might be able to tell that I recommend this movie wholeheartedly to all audiences, young and old. Really, if you can check it out, please do. But you're going to have to hunt for this movie. It's not streaming anywhere out there, which is odd for a movie that comes so highly recommended by every film buff I talk to. They seem to have seen it somewhere. I don't know where. But you can't stream it anywhere. We finally broke down and found it online and ordered the DVD, which we've gotten a lot of use out of already. And I'm glad we bought it. So back to my original question, is it okay to show a horror movie to your 4-year-old daughter? Well, it's not a horror movie per se. But if you consider the themes in this movie and the jump scares and some of the issues of dealing with fear as sort of the material of horror movies, as it often is, then I say yes. In this case, please queue up My Neighbor Totoro for Halloween with your little one. It really does fill that void for kids of that age who are looking for some thrills and scares, but don't want to be traumatized or have nightmares. It really just threads the needle perfectly, and you'll love it too. Cue it up. I'm Tom. This is Daddy Daughter Movie Night, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button on our videos. That really does help, and we'll see you next time.